Disobeying a good father. We had obey so the world doesn't break you in our house. This post was by far my favorite. Thank you for telling me that, Nancy. That's exactly the kind of thing I need to know. Like, I need to know that, so that, because that feedback will directly influence me in what articles to, like, for example, with the polygamy post, right? That came from the social media comments, right? And I understand that made some people feel uneasy, but no, really, it's like I'm trying to have conversations with people like you in the comments and say, okay, what is the current topic of interest? What are we interested in reading and discussing philosophically today, this week? And whatever we talked about or whatever we heavily referenced more than once, that's going to be the preceding article. Make sense? And so that's basically what that was about. That's all that was. That's all that was behind that. And now I'm trying to do the same thing again. So it's like this week, it's Nancy just said disobeying a good father. It's like, okay, well, I just jumped to YouTube. I can say I'm definitely here for the fatherhood content. Definitely here for the fatherhood content. Okay, so that's 2 for the fatherhood. It's extremely relevant for me these days. Right. Okay, roger that. All right, so you enjoy the fatherhood content more than anything. All right, fantastic. That's exactly what I need to know. Okay, so yeah, I'm getting excited now. Disobeying a good father. What does it mean to disobey a good father? So let's go into this. Now, this is going to be very rough because it's my first time. But like, right, so I can't show you the pictures, but not too far from here, there is, I can't show you the pictures because of security for my children, but not too far from here, there's a pagan burial site. In this area of Spain, it's heavily Celtic, and they speak their own language called Catalonia. I'm sorry, Gallegos, and it's not like the rest of Spain. Like, yes, it is Spanish speaking. They are capable of speaking Spanish, but it's not terribly unlike the village that I visited in China, within which they were capable of speaking Mandarin, but they actually had their own Gallego. Sorry, the language was Gallego. They're capable of speaking Spanish, no doubt, but they have their own provincial dialect called Gallego, in the same way that in China, or where I was in China, yes, they were in the mountain villages, or the mountain village, they were capable of speaking Mandarin, but they spoke their own dialect called Chanchihua. Yeah, John, yeah, northern Spain is actually, you'd be surprised. It's not what you'd expect. Like, yeah, it's Spain, but when people think of Spain, they think of European, they think of Western European civilization with a slight Islamic influence, right? And there's a strong historical reason for that. But in this case, let me turn off the light because I see that the sunburst, the light burst. Okay, the reason for that is because everybody knows Spain was conquered by Islam for about 800 years. They think of flamenco and beaches. They think of sangria. Like, they think of very truly Spanish things. But before that, like historically, in ancient Spain was no different than Norway. It was no different than, Scotland. And they even had the same building architecture with the stones that you saw in Braveheart, movies like Braveheart. It's like rural Scotland. The weather's almost the same, and the pagan symbolism is of the same. It's like it's like the whatever those settlers were, those ancient pagans were, they must have at some point migrated to the north of Spain, and the north of Spain is it's like you might forget that it's Spain. You might think that you're in rural Ireland for a second, and that's the way it is here where I am. And there is a Celtic, and it is Celtic. There's a Celtic burial site. It's a national monument. It's a national preservation. Not too far from where I'm sitting, and that's where we went to go camping for about 3 or 4 days. And throughout this journey, I was being that archetypal father. I was teaching my kids how to light fires for. Oh yeah, and by the way, somebody just said the national instrument in Spain is bagpipes, like the Scottish. So you'd be surprised, like pre-Islamic Spain, ancient Spain is like no different than Scotland, which is really cool to think about. So actually, it's kind of tragic to think about it, depending on how you want to look at it. But anyway, yeah. So we were not more than anything. I have no idea what's happening next. It's LOL. It's awesome. Celtic. I just need to get out. Yeah. Okay, so we were at this Celtic burial site. When I say Celtic burial site, like, have you ever heard of the video game Senua's Hellblade: Senua's Sacrifice? Hellblade: Senua's Sacrifice. This is what it's like. It is not the Spain that you think it is. It's like a section of Ireland. And this is what the people look like. This is what the architecture looks like. You'll see Norse symbols everywhere. You'll see the Celtic symbols everywhere. You'll see this symbol. You'll see this symbol random locations, and it's nationally preserved. It's like the Spanish government protects it because it's a part of its ancient history, where the original Spaniards were virtually identical to the Scottish Celt. The Scottish Celts. So we're at this burial site, and the burial site is by the beach, and the site is a fortress. It's an ancient fortress that was built to protect the area against invasions from the sea. So you have to. It's easy to climb. To someone like me, I wouldn't even classify it as a climb. But to the kids, it's legitimately dangerous. You could absolutely die climbing the rocks, because that's what it's meant to be. It was meant to make people die, intruders. It was meant to make intruders to climb up the walls, like you're in the anime Berserk or some shit, and a sword cuts your arm. You fall down. You roll down to your death, right? Or you fall into the ocean, never to be seen again, or shark-infested waters. Right, so it's really cool. It's a really cool site, and that's where we were staying. And I took the time to teach my kids a bit more about how to light fires, general fatherhood stuff. And that's the story that I highlight in this article, pertaining to how when we were at the beach before this fortress, the beach of the fortress. I say, you watch out for the riptides. And my daughter, she said, yes, she didn't willfully disobey me. She just didn't take me that seriously, which was a mistake. Right, so she wasn't like rude. She didn't like, when I speak, she listens. She just, when she gets excited, she was really excited. She wasn't thinking straight. And she didn't quite understand the danger. She just didn't. Until, and to a certain extent, I allowed it to happen in the same way that I wrote in the article, because I knew that I could harp all day. I could yap, and not really get through to her. To some extent, on certain things, she's got to learn the hard way. The challenge is, to what extent does she learn the hard way? And my challenge as a father was to make sure she got the split-second scare, but in a controlled way, to the extent where I knew that she was safe, even in the worst-case scenario. Right? And that is not easy. That's it's not easy, right? Anything could go wrong, because even in the worst-case scenario, let's say and I wrote this in the article, let's say we did get dragged out to sea. These are shark-infested waters, right? So in a hypothetical vacuum, yeah, sure, I could have in fact survived the riptide, dove into the riptide with her, and relaxed the body, calmed her down, let the riptide take us, and then loop back around and riding the waves back to the beach. But even doing that, I may have the know-how, and I may have the physical prowess necessary to make that swim. That is not to say that we won't get attacked by something along the way. That's not to say that there won't be more riptides or something else that catches us along the way. So I'm not going to sit here and pretend like I was totally, absolutely in control. So it was, in fact, a very calculated risk. But that's life. Sometimes it doesn't always work out. There's nothing, and that has nothing to do with being a bad parent. That's just life. And life's not fair for any of us to one extent or another. So I did everything that I could to make sure that the chances with such a calculated risk were absolutely in my favor. And fortunately, the gods were on my side that day. And she definitely brought the lesson home. More than just simply the lesson of, okay, be careful about the ocean, respect the ocean, don't underestimate the ocean. At a deeper level, it was, you better fucking listen to your dad. Your dad knows what the hell he's talking about. And she definitely learned that day. And not in a way that required me to punish her or definitely not hit her or anything like that. It was just, I think genuinely good fatherhood, the fatherhood in its pinnacle form, is when a father, or really, it doesn't have to be a father, it could be a mother, right? Just the parent. But in this context, it's speaking as myself from my anecdotal experience, it would be the father. It's not that you're disobeying your father. Right, and the article goes into that, the difference between authoritarian and authoritative. I am an authoritative parent, not authoritarian, right? To a great extent, like you will obey me to the extent where you're not going to disrespect me in my own house. Oh hell no, right? And my kids, I don't have to. My kids already know that, right? But there are lots of different ways you can instill that respect into a child without fucking going berserk on them. There are a multitude of ways. Like, for example, rough housing, rough play. And, there are a lot of fragile parents that think there's something wrong with rough housing when, in fact, according to clinical studies, rough housing is excellent. Controlled, safe rough housing is excellent for the development of your children for a lot of different ways. And dads are uniquely suited to rough house with their children in ways that are going to be a bit more difficult, not impossible, but a bit more difficult for a woman to, just through the nature of biology, just for the differences in like bone thickness, strength, that sort of thing. And with that in mind, my kids know my strength. They know how strong I am. Like, they can feel it. They know not to, right? If they not to cross certain lines, and I don't have to hurt them. They know not to cross certain lines because it's subcommunicated by calculated play. Almost like lions and how they'll play. That little lion cub, can feel the strength of that fatherly lion, even though the lion does not necessarily have to eat the cub or bite the cub or claw the cub for the cub to understand, hey, that's daddy lion. You know what I mean? So like, my kids have a combination of awe and fear. And I'm not so proud of the fear part, but like, it's effortless. Like, I don't want them to be afraid of me. Yet, it cannot be helped because of how strong I am. Even if we're not even talking about any actual physical harm being incurred, it's just when you're roughhousing with a dad who's been training it relatively consistently in MMA for the past 20 years, like the kid knows, like they can just feel it, so it's subcommunicated. And in this instance, translated to the beach incident, it's not that my kids disobey. They have the freedom to a certain extent to disobey me because I don't want them to be parrots. I don't want them to be parrots. Absolutely not. It's just that there is in fact such a thing as objective truth. We human beings struggle to understand objective truth. We struggle to comprehend it. We struggle to imbibe it. If such a thing can actually be imbibed without violating the concept of it being objective in the first place. Right? But that's a different philosophical conversation that we could have. The fact that there is in fact such a thing as truth. When a father or parent, it could be the mother, but in this, again, disclaimer, just speaking from my anecdotal experience as the father, it is not so much that you're disobeying me or not taking me seriously, it's that you're not taking the truth seriously. So an authoritarian parent does not necessarily always speak from truth. They'll lie to their kids, they'll manipulate their kids, and they'll conduct themselves in a certain way that's like, when the kid speaks the truth, the kid is the bad guy in the situation. No. When my kids speak the truth, I reward them. Right? I congratulate them because truth is difficult. Truth is generally painful, conceptually. So if they can demonstrate that they can acquire through reason their own deeper and deeper, progressively deeper levels of truth, I praise them for that because that takes strength of character. And certain truths I don't feel comfortable bestowing upon them. Certain things I've let them figure out on their own because maybe they're too young to learn certain truths. But that, again, that's another conversation. With that said, to disobey an authoritative, not authoritarian, but an authoritative father or parent, right, or mother, is not so much that you're disobeying the parent. It's not an egoistic thing. It's that you are disobeying the truth. And when you disobey the truth, the world will punish you. Like, I don't have to hit you. I didn't like when my daughter disobeyed me, so just gonna put that in air quotes, when she disobeyed me, the reason why I was able to smile was because I knew the error, the grave mistake that she had made. And I didn't have to do anything to her. I knew that the ocean itself was going to put the fear of the gods in her. Like, I didn't have to yell. I smiled because I knew what was coming. But I also knew, simultaneously, I knew what was coming in combination with me being there and having the skill to handle the situation. Right? It would be different if I lacked the skill to handle the situation. That's when I would become suddenly filled with anxiety and panic. I would try not to panic, but that's when my emotional state would have been vastly different if I didn't have the swim training that I got from the SEAL training, right? So it would be a totally different situation. But also, if knowing my personality, if I was not a sub-Olympic swimmer, if I didn't have that prior experience, then I don't think I might have allowed them near the ocean like that, right? So it's a give and a take, right? But I digress. It wasn't that she was disobeying me. It was that she was disobeying the truth of the ocean. And all I was a messenger. Authoritative parents are little more than messengers of truth, while giving their children the freedom to develop however they may, as free-thinking individuals. And if you disobey the truth, the lack of truth will consequentially punish you in and of itself. I don't have to. What's best is that I'm there in what ways that I can be to cushion and control the damage. So let's do the best taught the hard way. It might even help others to want. Yeah. Now see this that what I just said. That was me speaking authentic. Like I love this, right? Right. So this is the kind of video content that I would turn into like a supplement or like a video addendum to the blog. So I'm going to clip this and add it to the blog. Right, and that'll be what it is for YouTube, and that helps me to build the audience. It helps me to improve the experience of the content, and that helps me to bring in more paid subscribers. Right. So now if we could that's Nancy, because I know that you were worried about the polygamy post. Like, no, relax. Truly, I hope you can see that in my body language, my eyes. No, there was nothing behind it like that. Just simply, that was the discussion, and this is what I wanted to do. Now you guys tell me, okay, it's the fatherhood content. That is the discussion of this week or this live stream. That is what I'm going to, we're going to talk about that. Make sense? And that's now I'm going to go produce more content in this direction. All right, I love the rough housing. She loved being thrown. I'm going to look at some comments. She loved being thrown around and caught. She had so much faith in Daddy, always catching her. It became her downfall. I don't know what to say to that. May the gods watch over you and the tides ever be in your favor, Mike. Thank you. I need to practice that more. Instilling respect is a current struggle. John, do you mind going into how instilling respect is a current struggle? Could you go into detail? Do you mind going into detail about that? If so, then we can leave that alone. But maybe that could be an article. Maybe that could be the next article. All right, and my methodology of instilling respect in children. And this isn't just in my own children. Remember, I was a teacher. I taught classes of 60 kids a pop in China. Classes of 60 kids. Classrooms filled with 60 kids. I know in America, in the West, 60 kids in a single classroom is unheard of. That's a horror story. But because of China's condensed populations in these not isolated, but these focused areas, right? Like rural China is barely populated at all. So it's like the overpopulation of China is due to or emanates in the manifestation of a whole ton of people congregated in a focused area of the focused geographical location of a city. And that has lasting reverberations, lasting ripple effects of consequences throughout the entire country. Right. Sorry, I wasn't able to devote my entire attention to this. We were still potty training. No, totally understood. Dude, I'm willing. It won't be easy, but I'm not a hugely proud person. 60 is way too much. That and culture differences. Yeah. But let me tell you, I've got. I actually have. Thankfully, I have a video, a bit of a video from when I was teaching in Williams English School in China, and you can see how the kids were reacting to me. That wasn't propaganda. That they were really reacting to me like that. when I would walk into the school, not the school, the classroom, and they did not do this for every teacher. They just did it for me and the other native Chinese teachers, and I'm not native Chinese, right? So they didn't do it for the other foreign English teachers. So I was unique in this regard. The sort of respect that I commanded. They would stand up, all 60 students, like I was a fucking commanding officer. You know how, like, in the military, when the captain's on deck, you have to stand, or a superior officer walks into the room or into your tent, you have to stand up at attention. That's exactly what they did en masse. When I walked into the room, they would stand up and say, Lao Shi Hao, meaning, hello, teacher, or, good day, teacher, right? And that it was a sign of deep respect. It got to the point where there was one point where some Chinese teachers didn't like it because they envied the respect that I was getting that they didn't get. And I was supposed to be the foreign teacher. I was supposed to be below them. And they didn't like that I was getting this respect, because it wasn't just simply respect. It was also that my classes were objectively funner. Like I would do kung fu in class. Legitimately, I would do kung fu in class. I would do cartwheels over desks to maintain the kids' attention, and then we would play these really cool educational games that I would come up with. Like one I didn't come up with, but I actually got it from another teacher, but I modified it in my own way. And it's called Sangguosha, which is the 3 dynasty kingdoms of China: Shu, Wu, and Wei Guo. The three. If you ever played Dynasty Warriors, there's a PlayStation game. There's a Sony franchise of games around it. Or Dynasty Warriors, and I would split the classroom into 3 groups, and one group was Wu Guo, or Wu country, or the Wu forces. One group was the Shu forces, and the other group was the Wei forces, and they would have to drill and answer my questions in order to score points again. And like they would gain a point, and they could inflict a point of damage against another team. So I basically divided the classroom into 3 sections and had them wage war against each other throughout the process of answering my questions and thus learning English along the way inadvertently. And I got very intricate with it. Like, that was the basic form of it. But as I got better at it, I started evolving the rules. Like, they could form alliances. They could betray people. They could trade points for more. Like, if you got points, you didn't have to initially use it. You could save it and then, like, gain 2 to 3 more points for every turn that you did not spend it, and trade it with a hidden ally in the classroom. Like, it got crazy. And then there are also games that we would play where I would do kung fu stunts if they got certain answers right, or they would have to do something if they got certain answers wrong. And so it was very fun, and I left this major impression on all the students, to the point where I earned a certain level of respect, higher than even a lot of the other native Chinese teachers. And so whenever I would walk in, the kids would stand up and they would bow to me and say, Lao Shi Hao. Like I was like, that damn straight, right? So the article that I could write a lot about instilling respect. I couldn't hit them, right? So, because if I hit the kids, holy shit, they'd throw my ass in a Chinese gulag easily, right? So I couldn't hit them. So the question is, how do you instill respect holistically? How do you strike the fear of the gods in a kid without needing to even go there? Right? It's sub-communicated. It's implicit, to where they just, like, you walk into the room and they know, oh shit, Dad walked into the room. Right? You don't have to necessarily go there. It's already in their minds without ever actually being that monster in reality. They just know that you're capable of it. Right? And the way that you play with them, I think that's the key in 9 out of 10 scenarios. It's the way that you play with them. And the other 1 out of 10 is when they do test the boundaries your advice better be based on truth, because then they see in retrospect, shit, I should listen to him. So let's see here. What I consider failure, I guess, is dealing with my dude when he's doing the thing I just told him not to do while smiling. How old is he? How old is your son that you're referring to? John, how old is he if he's disobeying you while smiling? Because I will say, it's strange. My sons have never done that. Not, I have multiple sons. Not a single one of them, and they've passed toddler age. Not a single one of them have ever done that to me. Like willfully disobeyed me and smiled. That's odd to me. Now I know many. It's normal across many households throughout the world, but in my house that has never happened, not once, with any of the kids. Do you do you if he disobeys you, or if he does something that you dislike, do you have a means of taking away privileges? And do you stick to your guns when you tell him no? No matter how much you might whine, like my kids will do that. They'll whine and they'll like, I want that. I want to be the first to play the PlayStation. I want to. They'll do that. Well, I hear you. You're trying, but so like I'm trying to get into the weeds of it. Are you like do you have privileges that you take away from, like, I'm going to give an example from what I'll do with my kids. We have a ranking system, military style. Uh, so a kid can gain or lose rank depending upon how they behave. Now they know not to disbehave with me, right? They not once have they ever gone there. Um, but they have absolutely misbehaved out in public, on various scenarios. I won't go into detail, but they've absolutely embarrassed our house a couple times, depending on which kid we're talking about. But swiftly, within 24 hours, that was corrected. Um, and by that, I mean, like, I would clearly break down like why they need to not be so narcissistic and how they dishonor our home. And why it's strictly important to make friends with people to an extent that you keep your self-respect and boundaries. But it's important not to have everyone hate you, to think that you're better than everyone, because that's a downside. And I fully admit this with full vulnerability. That's a downside to having me as a dad. Right? So what are the downsides of having me as a dad? And that's one of them, where you think that your dad is so fucking cool. You think that your dad is like your dad's super smart. He's super strong. He's athletic. He rock climbs in Norway. It's you think you think your dad is so damn cool that goes to your head, and you develop into a little narcissist if it's not kept in check. Right. So one of my kids had this air of superiority And I'm all about having confidence. I want my kids to feel confident, but there was a point where we got a complaint from the teacher. I'm not going to go into detail about something that they did that greatly dishonored our home. And within 24 hours, I made sure that kid issued a written apology. Nobody's hurt. Like it didn't come to any sort of violence. Just really obnoxious character. And that's probably the worst that I've experienced as far as disrespect. None of my kids have ever directly disrespected me. They just don't. And I think that's not entirely to do with me. I think a lot of that has to do with their mom. Because, and I'm talking about from the womb even. I think it's not just, because I can't take full credit, because that would also simultaneously be a relatively narcissistic thing to do. I think holistically, if we were to view all acts of disrespect as symptomatic to the holistic health of the home, as both the mother and father form a symbiotic relationship of mutually exchanged value, setting that example for the children in the domicile, then that immediately begs the question: what role the mother plays in discipline? And I'm going to tell you right now what I think. Oh yeah, okay. Oh, he's an only child, so the ranking is a bit moot. Right? Yeah. Okay. No, I totally understand. I get that. Yeah, it's because it actually helps to a certain extent to have more than one child. But I understand it's expensive, right? And it's a high risk. Like we're going through a high risk pregnancy right now, so I'm with you on that. So what was I saying? So what role does the mother play? Right now, I'm not asking you to answer it. I'm telling my own story here, my own anecdote, asking a rhetorical question. And honestly, discipline begins before they even leave the womb. I firmly believe that my kids start respecting me before they're even born. And that is largely due to the psychological imprinting of the mother, because she looks up to me. My wife legitimately looks up to me. Like if there's like, she's hype, she's very attuned to how I'm feeling. If she's just very, what I say heavily influences her, so I have to be very careful. She's very sensitive to me. She cares. She loves me deeply. And that's a wonderful thing. But with that comes, I have to be very gentle with even body language, because I matter that much, right? And that I've never mattered in any other home in my entire life. I've never known what it felt like to matter so much until I met her. So thinking about that, what does that psychologically do to the child as they're integrating that DNA, the genetic memory, the strong emotional associations of the mother while they're growing in the womb? And then and they hear your voice. There's the science behind what happens in the womb is absolutely fascinating. So when they hear my voice in the womb, and then finally, and the mother genuinely looks up to the father, me. They're born already ready, pre-installed with "look up to daddy," sort of it's somewhere in their subconscious minds. So that's where it starts, before they're even born, actually, while they're in the womb. So the discipline, if I was to write an article about the discipline of the children, I would actually take a step back and say, before we even talk about the discipline of the children, how do you treat the wife? How do you treat the mother? How do I treat my wife? And if I treat her well while working excruciatingly hard to be truly worthy of that man that she respects, to have earned and maintained that respect. And by the way, my wife is listening to this right now. She's in the other room. So like, if you disagree, I know you hear me. If you disagree, by all means, step in. You are completely free to. This is live. If you want to say something, if you think I'm going off on a tangent and I'm bullshitting, by all means, Karina, you're free to say something. How do you treat her? Right, and then that's actually a more complicated question than you may think, because there are plenty of nice guys that treat women nicely, right? But niceness doesn't mean shit without respect. So how do you earn respect, right? And that's through the kind of soldierly, and at least in my experience, it's going to be different. You're going to get a different story from other guys, but in the way that it has worked for me is not just simply my past in the military, because to be honest, my past in the military wasn't that impressive. At least not in comparison to others. Like, it sounds really cool on paper that I got a top secret security clearance by the FBI when I was like 19 and all that. It sounds really Hollywood level, but really veterans know, like real ones know, like what sounds cool on paper is different than the reality of a real deployment, right? The real ones know. So like it wasn't like James Bond 24/7. It wasn't like that. And it sounds way cooler than it actually was. And while there were definitely Hollywood-esque moments, the majority of the deployments were boring. Right? So it's not as impressive as it may sound on paper. But I digress. It's not just the past. It's in the same way. Like, I've never once raised my hand to strike my wife, not once. But I've never had to. Right? Through the same or very similar kind of subcommunicated power in, for lack of a better way of putting it, sex, how sex goes, and I'm trying to watch what I say because I am on live stream, but it's also a matter of what she has seen. My wife has seen me fight. She's seen me get in the fights before, and she's also seen how other men respond to me, such as there were Muslims in China that didn't know that we were together at first. And I actually wrote an article about this on the old version of Norton's Mind, about how we were hunted by panthers in the Chinese wilderness around the first winter I took her up there to the secret spot that I built. And again, it sounds cooler on paper than it really was. We weren't attacked. I didn't have to like fist fight a panther or anything like that. But it was as a matter of fact, so we were technically hunted by panthers, but I was so skillful that we never needed to have a direct confrontation. Because if you have a direct confrontation with a wild animal like that, you fucked up somewhere, right? A real wilderness expert will tell you that almost in a Sun Tzu way, perhaps the way that I pronounce it is different from most Westerners. In Chinese, you would say Sun Tzu, but in Western English, you would say Sun Tzu, the art of war. That all of war is the art of deception, or the pinnacle of war is to not fight at all, right? And the real wilderness masters will tell you that the moment you hear a story of a dude fist fighting a panther, he's either an egomaniacal piece of shit who's a liar, or he really did come into a confrontation with a panther or some other wild animal, thereby making him not brave. Well, maybe he's brave, but not worthy of so much respect more than he is incompetent. Because the pinnacle of surviving in the wilderness is, true to the art of war, not having to fight those animals at all. So what I did was scare them off. Quite simply, raising the bass of my voice, and I could do it right now, but it's late at night. It's 4:16 in the morning where I am, so I don't want to wake up my neighbors. The bass of my voice can be heard down the street if I wanted it to, and that's not an exaggeration. And the Muslims that almost attacked her, there were three of them, and I was armed with an axe and a combat knife, and they didn't know that we were together. And so when you're going up to these mountains, there's a tourist path and there's a wilderness path, and I went on the wilderness path, not the tourist path. The Muslims were going on the tourist path, and my wife was a bit behind me. I was taking point because that was our typical formation. I would take point so as to break through the ice. And there was a point at which I almost lost my legs because I was breaking through the ice for her sake, so that because her body's she's very, even now she's got a very petite body. Her body cannot handle breaking through chest level ice when you're in high altitudes. Somebody has to do it, so it was me. So all these things that I'm explaining to you, like from the way I handled the ice, the way I like tanked the ice for her, even at the near loss of both of my legs, through frostbite, and that's a different story. How I rescued her against or from Chinese triads with that's another story, and how the Muslims to complete that sub story. Again, no confrontation actually happened, because I used intimidation as a well enough deterrent. We were in a formation, I was taking point, and she was a couple feet behind me. And I was well aware of the Muslims, but I wanted to keep my head down. I wanted to keep a low profile because, again, you want to avoid conflict at all costs. But she had said something, my wife had said something, I don't remember what it was, and they hurt her. And so they and I'm not saying she was picking a fight with him or anything like that. It wasn't like that. She just said something. I forget what it was. I don't even think it was to them, but they just hurt her. And because of the distance in our formation, they initially assumed that we were not together. And so they actually stopped. They paused and turned around, and they began to approach her. Now, of course, they never actually got close to her. The moment, because I had kept my third eye on them the entire time. The moment they began to walk, I would say they were maybe 15 feet away, 20 feet away, right? By the time they got within 12 to 15 feet, it was quite clear. I stood up boldly, and I couldn't speak. I think it was Farsi that they were speaking, but I had my knife and my axe, and I clearly subcommunicated like, hey, you guys outnumber me. Yes, we are together. You guys may outnumber me, but I'm telling you right now, right? And they're scrawny guys, right? So and like, my camera's not doing me justice. I'm 6 foot tall, highly muscular. I mean, it seemed like it. Like I don't. If I was to take my shirt off right now, like you'd be. I've got muscle. They were like 5'6". Like they were three dudes, so they had various heights. Like one was like, I'm gonna eyeball it at 5'6", 5'8", max 5'9". Right? They were in the 5'6" to 5'9". So they were short compared to me. So I stood over these dudes, and they could see that I was taller than them from that distance, and I could see, and I know that because I could see how much shorter they were to be from that distance. And I subcommunicated, you might outnumber me. You know what? You might even beat me. Right? I'm not even going to be cocky about it. They might have even beaten me via overwhelming numbers. But I'm telling you right now, and I subcommunicated this, you're not going to beat me without at least two of you either dying or being permanently maimed for the rest of your life. Who wants to be first? Nobody wants to be first, right? So they got the fucking message. Turned right the fuck around and kept it moving, right? You're not going to be essaying. I have to watch what I say on, because I'm on live stream. You're not going to be essaying this blonde in this forest today, right? And so my wife watched these, like she's bared witness to these events, not just simply as a witness, but for her, in service to her. And So it's not just a story of my past that I could tell her. It's the continual demonstration of that kind of masculinity over years that leads to accumulated respect over time. That just kind of gets higher and higher and higher as we go on, and that absolutely influences the child in the womb. Absolutely, axiomatically, a priori, influences the child in the womb before they're even born. So the kid comes out with this like, whoa, this subconscious programming, this genetic memory of, well, dad's a fucking boss. I don't know why he's a boss, but he's a boss. And then there's that pre-installed programming. Then my wife, when I'm not, she's with the kids right now, because I'm live streaming here in this room. She's with the kids right now. They're asleep, but you can tell that, okay, when I'm doing this sort of thing, she's nurturing the kids. She obviously tells them stories. She tells them these things. I don't talk to the kids like that. I mean, I talk to the kids, don't get me wrong, but like, my personality right now. Like, I self-promote as a means to an end. And I'm an introverted dude. I may not seem like it right now, but in my heart of hearts, I'm a very introverted man. I'm like, it begs the question why I was alone in the wilderness for so long. And anyhow, right? So because being alone recharges my batteries. It doesn't drain them. Whereas with an extrovert, they need to be around people to recharge their batteries. They're the polar opposite. And I recharge my batteries when I'm away from people. Then take all of that into consideration with play. They feel a sample, a non-harmful sample of daddy's power in play, combined with that pre-installed genetic memory, the imprinting of the mother's emotions, and the story she herself tells them. Right? So I self-promote on social media, but when I turn the camera off, I'm telling you, I'm a writer. I don't talk much. I'll talk at length the same way I'm talking now if you push the right buttons. You trigger the right memories. However, you have to trigger the right memories first, right? So if it's just an ordinary day, I don't talk much at all. I'm a writer. So, okay, John. So what you can do is, since this is recorded, just go back and you can just watch the story. I'm going to clip all this anyways, right? So there's no way I'm letting this go without being saved for the annals of the YouTube page. So with that in mind, I don't usually talk that much. So it's her. She does that talking. If I don't have a reason to tell them a story, then I don't tell them that story, because ordinarily it requires, like, it sounds cool to their ears, but what I remember is being afraid. And by definition, that means I was genuinely courageous, but that doesn't mean that you feel courageous in the moment. What you feel in the moment is the primal overcoming of fear, or the dealing with fear, where you lose a sense of yourself. It's like the saying that they have this, and they have this saying in some derivative of this saying in martial arts. They have this in CQC or CQB training in the military. It's under duress. Now there are various derivations of it. So if I don't say this saying in the same exact way that you might remember it, I beg you to consider the substance of the saying, the substance of the expression, even if the rhetoric of it is a bit different than what you remember. And that is, when you're under duress, you fall to your level of training. Right? You don't. It's not what you can think. You can't think in the moment when you're afraid. So that's the whole point of training. Else, if you could really think, like really think to the highest extent of your potential IQ, then you wouldn't need to train that much. Because once you're in a life or death situation, you could just invent a novel solution. Now, to some extent, some people can do that, but in general, when bullets are flying, or your life's in danger, like real danger, and that you get that spike of cortisol in your amygdala, that the amygdala center of your brain is just fucking is being overloaded with electrical signals. You're not thinking. You naturally shift into a different modality, and what overcomes is instinct, and that instinct better have been channeled through adequate training, which takes time. That cannot be faked. So, what did you say? I think part of the differences between your fatherhood and mine might be the fact that you're present the majority of the time, being gone for the day job to the tune of running out the door with him to daycare and come back. That is definitely a factor. Yeah, that's definitely a factor as well. Because daycare, and what I'm about to say, don't think I'm putting you down. Because I understand how me working from home and being able to generate the income that I do from, like, if you didn't know me, if I say I work from home, I might fall into the stereotype of thinking like, oh, I'm a bum. No, I'm not a bum. I'm far from it. Right? I make 6 figures a year doing what I do, and I'm building my asset column little by little. As we can see, this is part of the reason why I'm live streaming it now. Anyway, but with that said. That is absolutely a fatherly advantage. That's another thing. So you're absolutely right. I can't forget that. Because when you send your kids to daycare, you're essentially outsourcing your parenting. Stress like that is almost Freudian in that respect. Actions and emotions under distress can usually reveal underlying reactions to stress. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. All right, so holistically, and thank you for saying that, because I'm also going to add that to the article, because I can't forget that distinct advantage that I have, and it's also the reason why I might be an outlier for having more than 6 children. Because statistically, the more children you have, like 6 is generally the limit for the average family. But what is the average family? The average family is where the dad and mom, well, now the modern average family is when both the dad and the mom are working to some extent or another, and their kids go to daycare, the kids go to public school, and they're the 2 incomes coming in, and there's only an X amount of hours per day that the parents are actually with the kids. Whereas with us, we are with the kids 24/7, almost 24/7. Now they go to school, but besides that, none of the kids have ever been to daycare. None of them. We built our little family would-be empire completely within our houses, working primarily remotely. I can confidently say that me and my wife are the chief influences in our child's lives. 100%. The average family can't actually say the same, though. Not with the same level of confidence, and I don't blame them. I'm not putting them down. This is not like an arrogant rant. No, I'm saying like that's just a sad fact. This is in fact an advantage and a privilege that I have, and I thank you for saying that, because that it absolutely is a factor. So it's everything I said plus that. It's the reaction of the mother, the accumulated respect over time that the mother has that imprints upon the child before they're even in the womb. There's the play, and just being a generally respectable dude, an honorable dude to begin with, because your kids, they can see weak, and the kids are not idiots, right? They can see, they know, they can feel strength of character. They can intuit integrity to a father's character. If you say no and you stick to your guns, and no means no, like they know this, they can feel it. There's that, and then there's also the fact that we are indeed the primary on-location influences of our children. And the average family cannot say that. And it's part of the reason why, it's a critical reason why I was able to protect my kids from molestation in Alaska is the fact that I didn't have somewhere else to go. Is the fact that I was always in the at-home lab, building, tinkering. I was always there within earshot, with a sound security system, an intercom system throughout the entire house, which then eventually evolved into the home security system that I'm about to sell within a month or two from Woven Industries, right? But how many parents can say that they can do that they've done that, right? So you're absolutely correct. That is a major factor, and I won't leave that out in the next article. Demographic. What do you mean? I don't understand what you mean by demographic, John. Nancy says, we are in the same house as our adult children and her boyfriend, father of the children. We spend a lot of time, a majority of the time, with the grands. John says, I'm not perfect. I do actually hate following through with punishments. I said, yeah, but that's emotional mastery. And that's why you have to, before that's why when it comes to punishments, develop a premeditated system so that you know what it's going to be. So like, don't fly off the cuff and say, oh, I'm going to punish you for reason, in X, Y, and Z, because that's when you're most likely to go overboard and be cruel or abusive. If instead you have a system, that's what one of the first questions I asked you was, do you have a system of any kind? And you don't have, it doesn't necessarily have to be a ranking system. We had a system even when we had our firstborn, a system of algorithmic checks and balances of if this, then that, if that, then this. Like for example, if you disobey in this way, then, or this kind of offense means 1 day without video games. This kind of offense means this many days without any sugar. Any sugar, that means full ketogenic. So like, when feeding my kids, if one of them was punished at like a tier 2 level of punishment, I'd feed them. But they'd get eggs, burger meat, but like the burger meat without the bread, while we were all eating bread. So like, they'd absolutely get the nutrition, but they're not getting the sugar, because a lot of people don't know that carbohydrates are actually a form of sugar. So like, when I say no sugar for 2 days, ketogenic, right? It's like, I'm gonna enjoy the hell out of this burger bread, and oh, you've got the patty, we'll make sure that we give him extra to make sure that he definitely will make sure that we exceed their minimum caloric needs. But like, when I say no sugar, it's not just simply candy. I said no sugar. Right? And we have a system. So, and I can't tell you exactly what yours should be. It's just, it makes it a lot easier if you have protocol. That way you can have an easier time mastering your emotions, and you don't go off the cuff. I'm not saying you do. I'm just saying, like, speaking in general. That way, if you have protocol to fall back on, trust in the protocol, the system that you have set up, before you trust your emotions. Because your emotions, no matter how angry you get, they can take you too far, and you can veer off into the realm of abusive. Yeah, no sugar at all. If I say no sugar, I said no sugar. Right now, again, ketogenic diets are actually extremely healthy. They're probably healthier. So in a very counterintuitive way, the kid was actually eating better than we were. But in the mind of a child, it's like, oh my God, no sugar. It's so that's so like tier 1, like tier 1, tier 2, tier 3, like tier 1, no video games, tier 2, no sugar, depending on the severity of the offense. Prior to the action that warrants it. Right, I understand. Right, so just making sure that you have a system. That's what I recommend. That you you preemptively prepare to be disobeyed, and you know what to do. So like when you have when that occurs, just rely on protocol. Business is business. That's sort of, you develop that cold, stoic business is business mentality, that judicial mentality, so that you are in fact fair with your children. And explain to them the system too. Don't like surprise them. Say, hey, if you do this, then that. If you full transparency, so that they know what it's like, and you can hold them accountable. That's actually another method of holding them accountable. It's like, did you know the rules, and you still did X? Okay, what is the punishment for X? What is it? What are the consequences for X? Okay, the consequences for X are Y. Correct? Did we or did we not agree? Yes. Okay. Well then, don't cry. All right. No video games for 2 days. I don't want to hear it. Hello. If you're here on this page watching this video right now, you're probably interested in all of the upcoming articles I have for you to read. Every month, I've begun writing 5 literary prose essays. The other 4, however, are preserved for people like you who understand that some things are just worth investing in. Thus, to read the others, I would respectfully invite you to subscribe to my Substack in exchange for a small monthly contribution to fund my ongoing work. Watching this, if you're one of the people who have been following me for a while, you already know that this invitation is not actually about articles so much, more than it is about supporting a man that you respect while he's on his mission. Subscribing to my Substack is about something much bigger than just merely articles. It's about something far more metaphysical, far more archetypal, and me completing my mission ties directly into returning tangible value to your life in a multitude of ways, such as funding scientific development from Wolfen Industries, or even funding my ability to write classical works of literature that truly stand the test of time. For one instance out of many, I have had unfinished stories, half-written novels that have just sat there collecting dust, digitally speaking, on a cloud drive. I have to continually work to consistently provide for my wife and children, while neither my literary work nor my scientific work as an engineering physicist is any kind of work that I would want to rush for the sake of a quick buck. I do not create in a way that chases trends. I write and create where my heart is, where my pain is, where my scars have come from, as I value classical timelessness over popularity. In writing, the kind of quality that I'm referring to is akin to the quality you'd expect from legendary writers like Hemingway or Jack London. I simply do not write the kind of trash that you'd expect to find at random places of the internet, written by people who do not write from experience and are only trying to make a quick buck. So if I want to finish my literary works, and this is just one example out of many, if I want to complete a novel that is genuinely worth reading, that will provide long-lasting value to your life, or if I want to hasten the progress of technological security for your home developed by Wolfen Industries, then I need to carve time away from my day job to do it. And the only way for that to happen in a timely manner is for people like you to step up in a way that makes it possible. Without you, I will still be able to progress in my work, but it will take exponentially longer, and I may even die before I complete it. So, please, do accept my invitation to subscribe to my Substack. Engage in the continual conversation about life and what it really means to be a man.